Welcome to the TechSpace, and in this tutorial I want to go over basic math functions that are used in C++. And since this is tutorial 13 now, or 12 or 13 now, I figured we'd go over these math functions and set them into a different function. So we're going to go ahead and create some function. We're just going to create a void, and it's going to be called math formulas. No parameters, and we're just going to create it just like that. Now inside of here, what we're going to do is create two variables. Well, actually, I'll show you how to create multiple variables. So we have, instead of going int x, int y, when we're having the users input information, we can just store it just like this. So integer x, comma y, comma z, comma c, comma v, and then put that. So instead of an array, we're not declaring the value. So if we had an array or a certain amount of values that we'd want, say we wanted 5 values, I could just say integer, x, and I want 5 values, and I want to set those 5 values equal to, blah blah blah. I'll show you, give you an example. So we want these 5 numbers to be stored into this array, which is called, X array, and it has 5 elements inside of it. So this is when we want to declare the variables strictly. So when we want to give the variables an actual value, we can do this. But when we want the user to input the value, we can just go ahead and do a line of code like this up here at the top, where we just separate the variables by commas, ending them with a semicolon. So when we're declaring the variables, use an array, but when the user is going to be declaring the variables, we're going to use just a comma list of the variable names. So the variable names, again, could just be anything. I just use single letters because it is just going to create, ease as we go through, how to do math functions. So while they're not hard, math functions can get a little different. So what we're going to say first is we want the user to be able to enter values. So we're going to say enter 2 numbers to get multiplied. And then we're going to end the line, and then they're going to enter a number, say whatever, and it's going to be stored in X. And then they're going to say, I'm going to say enter another number, and it's going to be entered in Y. Now after that, the user has already entered X and Y, so we're just going to see out, and we want to multiply those numbers. So what we're going to do is say X, and then use the 8, the button, the symbol for 8 on the keyboard, and then we're going to say Y. And then we can end the line, or we can even do this and just put answer colon X times Y, and then end that line, so that when the user enters XY, we now have our operator, our math formula, which is just basic X times Y, and it's just going to take X and Y and multiply them together. And we got none on the screen because I forgot to call the formula inside of our main. So the function is above main, so I don't have to create the prototype. And enter 2 numbers. 6 times 6 is 36. So we can do the same thing. Add. I can just say added together, and then X plus Y. We'll enter the same 2 numbers, 6 plus 6, 12, and so on and so on. We can do minus, and I'll put change in this, subtraction, X minus Y, 6 minus 3 is 3. And then the last one, divided by Y, and of course I'll enter something that brings out an even number since we have integers, and again this is where integers are going to come into play. So we're going to do 9 divided by 3, and we're going to get 3. Now I'm going to run this again, and I'm going to do 10 divided by 3. So 10 divided by 3, and we get 3, because integers aren't made to store decimals like I said before. So if we want it to store a decimal and return a decimal, we use float or double. And since I'm going to get a little bit longer double, or a longer decimal, say we want this to be a very precise calculation, I can use a double, and it will return is think 8 decimal places. So we'll run this, enter two numbers to subtract together. We'll change that. Say divide, don't need together, and then we're just going to run it, and we're going to divide 10 times. 10 divided by 3 again. So as you can see, we get 3.33333, so it goes down 5 decimal places. So this is a very accurate number compared to, if we were to use integer, because integer isn't going to give us the decimal. So, the last thing I want to do, so we have 10, and say we divide it by 6. Again, we're going to get 5 decimal places. Okay, so say that you want to know, we're going to run the same program. Say that you wanted to know the remainder if you had 10 divided by 3. Say you just didn't know how to do division, and you wanted to know, if I divide 10 by 3, what's left over? What didn't divide into 10? So we get 3.333. Yes, that's the correct answer for this math, but what if we wanted the leftovers? So we wanted to know the remainder. We can do this. So we have x, and what we're going to want to do is type the percent sign and then y. So it's going to take x, it's going to divide it by y, but it's not going to give us the value of x divided by y, it's just going to give us the remainder of what's left over. So that's basically how you run formulas and math formulas. You just output the values, multiply them, subtract them, add them, divide them. You can do whatever you want as the user takes in input. So again, this works for every single type. So I could use this as a parameter. I could use math formulas, say x times y. I could take that and just say, okay, I want a double that holds x times y, or double that is equal to, let's say, equation 1, and that's equal to x times y. And then when I go to output, I can just say I want to use equation 1, because equation 1 will multiply x times y. Well, if I don't want to multiply, I can just use equation 2, which is going to take x and just divide it by y. So I can just say, okay, and now I want to use equation 2, because equation 2 does division. So let's mark these so we know which one's which. So we're going to say equation 2 is the division equation. And then we're going to say equation 1 is the multiplication equation. So now what we have, multiplication equation and our division equation, and they already have the user enter values, and they've already done the calculation, and they already have the results. So when I output the variable already is holding the result of x times y and x divided by y. So when I run this, I get enter two numbers. Actually, we'll fix this. So enter two numbers. In general, enter two numbers. Now I want 6, and let's do something different this time. 6 and 10. So, in multiplication, we get 60. 6 times 10, 60. 6 divided by 10, 0.6. And since I use doubles, I get the actual decimal point for those variables. So I get 9, 3. We get 9 times 3 is 27. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And we can do this for every single arithmetic operator that there is. So basically all we need to know is that arithmetic operators in math you can use by using these symbols right here. I'll do all 4 of them. X minus y, so we have multiplication, division, subtraction, and then we have basic addition. So x plus y, and then we can eventually use those equations to show up on our screen as answers. So we can set equations using math to different variables, and when we set them to different variables, it saves the equation as that variable. So we no longer need to, go in here and see out x times y. We can create x times y and then just call upon it when we need it. We can create x divided by y, then just call upon it when we need it. But the important part is to remember the operators and how math is done. So remember those, and remember that you can create variables that have not strict declared values that the user is going to input by separating the names of them with commas and then just ending it with a semicolon. So I have x, y, z, c, and d, and none of them have a specific value until I have told the program to let the user give us a value to store in that variable. So until I say store a variable in z, the computer won't store a variable in z, and I haven't declared that, so it's only taking x and y. And since these haven't been used, they're not going to create an error. They're not going to do anything. You can use them whenever you're ready, and then you can even take them out. Since we didn't use them, we can just say double x and y and declare those two variables together. But the important part again is to remember these variables, and remember how to do math and how basic math is carried out, because it is used a lot in C++ programming. Other than that, I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, leave them below, and I will see you in the next video.